The PlayStation VR2 has provided me with countless hours of virtual entertainment, but it's not a perfect headset, and there are quite a few issues I've had with the device that stop me from telling you to rush out and purchase one immediately. But first, I'd like to mention some of the things I do like about the headset, because there is a pretty large amount. First off, the comfort. This headset is impressively light and can be worn for multiple hours before becoming uncomfortable. Yes, there is still a cable, but it was long enough and light enough to not really get in the way of gameplay. That being said, I do prefer in-game turning options, so if you like to move and turn around in physical space, this might just be a deal breaker. But for me at least, it hasn't really been an issue. I was also pleasantly surprised by the visual quality. Not just the resolution, which is good, although not noticeably better than the Quest 2, but what certainly did impress me was the color. Because of its use of an OLED and HDR display, the visuals are incredibly vivid and realistically bright. Also, where headsets with LCD displays struggle to show darkness, the PSVR2's OLED display is able to turn off certain pixels in order to create an actual lack of light, making the darker sections in certain games even more immersive and deeply terrifying. Speaking of immersion, the PSVR2's controller and headset haptics do a great deal in simulating virtual actions. Of course, this does rely on support from individual games, but from what I've played so far, these features have been very well implemented. The PSVR2 launched with over 20 virtual reality titles, some of which were pretty heavy hitters. I've greatly enjoyed my time with Resident Evil Village and Horizon Call of the Mountain, and also some smaller titles such as What the Bat. Ultimately, I think it will be up to indie developers to really support and innovate on the platform, but I'm sure Sony still has a few more big titles up their sleeve. We already know that one of the biggest games of the year, Resident Evil 4, will be getting exclusive PSVR2 support sometime in the near future, and if it's anything like Resident Evil Village, then there's a lot to be excited about. And now for the negatives. First off, even though the display is very sharp and the colors look incredible, it is pretty hard to find the sweet spot. This makes it difficult to show off the headset to other people, and definitely gets annoying when it feels like you just can't get it to look perfect. Now, what I'm about to say might not be an issue for people coming from the original PSVR, but will probably be surprising to Quest and PC VR players. And what I'm talking about is the use of 60 frames per second. This is considerably lower than the standard for PC VR headsets, and is also less than the standalone Quest 2. It does use a technology called reprojection, which makes the image appear as if it's a native 120Hz, but it also creates ghosting and doesn't look nearly as smooth as 90 FPS, which is supported by some games and looks so much better. This is probably the area where the PSVR2 feels the most dated, because although the hardware supports up to 120 FPS, very few titles actually utilize it. And it's a shame because the technology is really impressive, but it doesn't seem like there's an incentive to really push performance on the platform. Overall, I'm enjoying my time with the PlayStation VR2, even if it doesn't feel like a massive upgrade over some of the other consumer headsets on the market. But it's still great value, and I'd highly advise you to consider buying one if you already own a PS5.